Hello everyone, I can really sense the anticipation for today's live stream. Welcome to this live stream featuring me, Joshua757, in the McDonnell Douglas DC-10 for Flight Simulator 2024 minus 20 equals 2004. Okay, so this is going to be a speed run masterclass, okay? We're not going to spend too long on this aircraft because I've already done a highly detailed flight sim video just 2 weeks ago where I went through the DC-10 as per the FCOM, okay? As per, step by step, exactly what to do, what systems to do. And it did take quite a lot of time, but I'm glad to have provided a definite resource. But today, we're going to get quite fast, okay? I'm going to streamline this. We're going to take off today from JFK, and we're going to go to Washington Dulles International Airport. And you might ask, why am I on the runway? Well, because in FS9, I couldn't find out which parking ramp to go to, so I'm just starting cold and dark at the runway, and then we're going to take it from there. All right, so let's get started. A couple of questions. What sim are you in? This is FS9, which is FS 2004, and this is a photorealistic DC-10. It's just look at the, the textures. You're not going to get this even in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's a lost art, really, taking photorealistic panels. And greetings to Super 6 CEO. I'm so glad you're here and deciding to spend a little while watching my video. So let's get started. So let's go to the Flight Engineers panel. Everything pretty much happens from here. So I'm going to just read out a very quick, what's it called? Crew inspection checklist, okay? So before we actually start. So in the real aircraft, it's aircraft log is checked. Radar is set to standby. Over here, have to get used to moving around these panels myself. Transponder is also set to standby, like so. And yep, HF radios, they're off. Circuit breakers, we can't check those. Spoiler handle in the detent position, flaps in agreement with the outside. Thrust reversers, obviously they're not actuated. Gear lever is down, that's a pretty obvious one. And windshield wipers and so on, they are off. Yep. And fuel dump, yep, it's been guarded in safe side. And yeah, that's pretty much the inspection checklist. So now I'm going to start off quite quick. So we're already connected to external power, as you can see over here. The external power in use light is on, and the IRS is set to align, and they've already aligned. So let's get the APU started, okay? So provided that you already have external power connected, the APU typically draws fuel from tank 2 left aft, which is this one over here. So I'm going to turn that boost pump on, and from there I don't have to then start the start pump. This is a DC pump if you were starting on battery power alone. So now I'm going to move this to the start position, and yep, notice the master caution came on. APU gen off is illuminated. APU door open light is now illuminated, and the APU is now spooling up, okay? And the APU oil pressure and all that stuff, low oil pressure lights will then go off as we spool up. I'm going to move the AC selector to APU so we can monitor this. And yeah, just waiting basically for the APU to spool up, and then after that we're going to switch over. So right now it's at 80%. Also, let's go to the overhead and just do a few things. We've got our IRS in alignment, sorry, INS, and yeah, let's just, here we go, we can check our present position, all that good stuff, and let's go to nav, okay, so nav on 1, 2, and 3. So just speeding things up a little bit while the APU takes its time. And I just want to, give me a second. I want to reduce the time because I prefer the night lights, you know, much more than the daytime lights. So just give me a second. There we go. I think this looks a lot better in my opinion. Anyway, so let's see, has our APU spooled up yet? There we go. Actually, when changing the date and time, it kind of messes things up. But I want to be in this night lighting, okay? So that's the reason why I did it. Right, so the APU has spooled up again. We can verify its output in the AC selector, like so. And now I'm going to switch on each APU gen 1 at a time. Notice the APU power in use lights are now on. And now I can safely disconnect external power. And when I do so, notice that the bus ties, which are in the norm position and have closed, will then go to isol. So there we go. The bus ties and isol. So that's how it works. Right, so let us now quickly proceed on with the cockpit flows. So I'm going to start from the top and go down in this way. And then we're going to check the hydraulics, the fuel, then come up over here. But before I do so, I want to establish a pneumatic power, okay? I want to get our packs on. So before I turn on the APU bleed, I need to check our manifold fail annunciations, okay? So I'm going to hold down manifold fail test 1. And test 1 and 2 should illuminate at the same time. The master warning should come on, like so. Then I hold down manifold test number 2, manifold test number 3, same routine, and that all checks out. So let's get our APU bleed on. Notice the isol valve disagree lights are out, and now I can turn our packs on, and there we go. We've got water packs and air conditioning to the aircraft. Okay, so starting up here, I'm going to check our APU oil quantity is all good, and APU settings are all okay. Let's check our battery and emergency AC supply. All checks out. Bus ties should be in isol for now. DC bus ties are set to open, that's standard. And DC load is less than 1.0, so that's all good. And yeah, AC load is not showing up yet. We've not got any engines running. CSD low pressure light should be on, like so. A couple of questions in the chat. Doesn't the fuel management work in this aircraft, where you take from the 3 main tanks at the same time? Yeah, we're going to go through fuel management very shortly. In short, there's 4 tanks. I mean, technically there's 5, because tank 2 is actually a split on the left hand side and right hand side wing, but is treated as a single entity. And yeah, there's quite a lot of options in terms of filling, tank to tank transfer, and even cross feeds and so on. Okay, so the APU has been checked, electrics has been checked. Coming down over here, we're now going to check our hydraulics. So our engine driven reversible motor pumps, non-reversible motor pumps, sorry, NRMPs should be off for the test. The PTUs, which are known as the RMP, reversible motor pumps, they should be off for the test. Okay, So the standby rudder power system, we're going to turn that on right now, toggle that on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start auxiliary pump number 1, which is an ADG. So let's do that now. So I'm going to start it. Notice hydraulic system number 3 is being pressurized. If I come over here to the second officer's panel, I can see the annunciator aux hydraulic pump 1 is on. Okay, and we're getting about 3000 psi, which is good. Now I'm going to turn on the reversible motor pump for that connects system 3 and system 1 to arm, okay, which will automatically turn on since there's a pressure differential between the two systems. And yep, we're noticing that system 2 is now pressurized, and if any of these things I'm doing are not working, you have to stop and call maintenance, okay? You can't proceed. And now I'm going to turn on reversible motor pump 1 and 3. Before I do so, look over here at the second officer's annunciator panel. We should verify this light that 1 to 3 or 2 to 3 pump valve is open. Okay, the system doesn't differentiate which PTU is on. As long as any one of them are on, it shows both. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on reversible motor pump 1 to 3 and notice that system 1 is now getting pressurized. Also, I'm going to verify on the overhead panel, auxiliary hydraulic pump is on. You can also start it from the first officer captain side. Right. So coming back, I'm going to start auxiliary pump number 2 as well. And I'm going to check the annunciator on the second officer's panel. The aux hydraulic pump 2 is on. Okay. So in reality, this should be done as soon as possible by the second officer to allow the captain to do his trim checks, so which I'm going to do now. The trim checks are as follows. So basically, both pickle switches are moved at the same time, and freedom of movement is checked. The trim horn is checked, and also the little thing here that tells you what trim position you are in, that should also move. Then the captain would only move one pickle switch, and the same horn should go off, the trim horn, but this thing over here should not move, okay? And same thing again with the suitcase handles and that kind of stuff. So that is the trim checks, kind of simplified because it's not that well modeled on this aircraft. Okay, coming over here to the overhead panel, just going to quickly accomplish a few things. Going to add on some instrument panel lights. Flap limit should be auto, elevator field should be set to auto, and this selector should be set to hydraulic. Your dampers should be on. If any of them are off and there's an annunciator that tells you so, just cycle them back on, okay? And anti-skid. There's also a yaw damper test here, which I'm going to press now. And it tests out the yaw damper fail. And this test is a self-test. It takes about 20 seconds to complete. Anti-skid should be done shortly thereafter, should be set to arm, and press and hold the test button and observe the appropriate annunciations. Okay, we've already done the alignment, and coming over here, emergency power, let's toggle that on. The emergency power in use light should show over here, which it doesn't, but it does show over here on the flight engineer's deck. So it's kind of modeled, but not entirely. Right, and also the emergency power and the emergency bus bar is actually powered by the ADG, which in turn powers tank 2 left, which actually powers the APU. So it's a kind of a neat system. Seatbelt signs I'm going to turn on. Ignition is off, override and air start is off. Emergency lights, it shows disarm because it's off. So let's set that to arm and press and hold the test button for about 5 seconds until you get the emergency light pass test. Okay, nav lights I'm going to turn on. like so. Let's reset our cues also over here for fuel, electrics, hydraulics, so on. HF radios, all that we're not going to worry about. We can do our stall test, overspeed test, and speed control test is actually, it involves quite a bit. You would set it to slow and you would be able to observe auto throttle advancement, but that's not modeled over here. Okay, anti-skid should be set to norm. Windshield anti-icing should be set to norm as well. And also we're going to test out our probe heats. We're going to set it to captain, first officer, and so on. Only one station, which is the total air temperature, or TAT, should read 0 on the ground, okay? And checking all the rest of them, and going to return them to off. Okay, so that's the overhead done. And let's come back over here to the flight engineer's deck, and let's depressurize our hydraulics, because we've already done our trim tests. Yeah, thank you for the kind words in the chat. Now I'm going to shut off the ADG, aux pump 1, aux pump 2. Okay, now the non-reversible motor pump. So one should be set to auto and one should be set to on, like so. There's no point in setting both to auto. That's how it works in the real aircraft as well. Now, fuel test is an interesting one. So to do the fuel test, I'm going to turn on the DC start pump in order to avoid APU flame out. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to latch on each aft boost pump one at a time and observe about 20 psi of fuel pressure, like so. And this is according to the real world aircraft as well. Okay, so that checks out. Let's turn them off. Then we're going to test out our transfer pump. So I'm going to turn on the transfer pump and open the crossfeed, noticing the disagree light. And this should actually read about 15 psi of fuel, so which is not modeled over here. And similarly, the second test, open trans pump for tank 2, open the crossfeed, and same for tank 3, and both should read 15 psi. Okay, so that's the fuel test. I'm just going to verify fill tank operation as well. We don't have any fuel in the auxiliary pump. Let's do a fuel quantity test as well. And we can do a fuel used reset as well. Okay, pressurization outflow valve should be set to the up auto position. Otherwise, your pressurization is entirely manual. Coming up over here, I'm going to turn our engine bleeds to auto. And also notice the ISOL valve discrete lights are out. I'm going to do a wing anti-ice test as well. And that all checks out. Pressurization, I'm going to set the landing elevation. And that's pretty much it. When auto and cabin vertical speed rate is set to normal. Let's do an annunciator light test of the whole flight engineer's panel. And yep, all checks out. And as according to the real aircraft, this fire detection loop test system should not illuminate. Also, another thing, before starting the APU, always do the loop test, which is actually something I forgot. Like so. And yep, so coming up over here, we're going to check trim as on. There's not too much we can do with cabin temperatures because it's not modeled. And we can do our cargo fire test as well, like so. And we can do our brake temperature test. There we go. And checking a couple of things, engine oil quantity. And yeah, so that's pretty much the flight engineer's panel done. Coming over here to the captain's glare shield, let's get the flight directors on, like so. Let's set our altitude, which is, let's see, 30,000 feet. So let's set that up. And I'm going to pull it out, okay, to arm the altitude. And as shown over here, the little altitude light. I'm going to press the press button for heading hold, and that should display then the current heading. like so. And a couple other things I'm going to do. I'm going to do an FMA test, which, let me find the click spot. There we go. You can see the test enunciation on the FMA. You can do a GPWS test as well. There's also an ADF test, but we can't do that. I'm going to do a simplified decision height test, where I'm just going to blank out the decision heights and observe the light goes out. I'm going to do the flight director test, like so, observing a 10-degree pitch up and about 15-degree bank, I believe. Let's do our markers test as well. And the altimeter today is 2992. I press the B key, and VOR, INS, RAD INS switches are set to radio, like so, on both sides. And let's set up for the departure. Today we're going to fly the Canarsie climb, so 112.30. And on the right hand side, I'm going to put in the Kennedy VOR, 115.9. like so. And the course is 223. Gonna add that in over here. There's also an auto throttle test I can do by turning them on. It should go into idle clamp and so on. Okay, bank angle selector set to auto, altitude is armed, and yeah, not too much left. There's before engines start, typically the captain presses the toga button on the throttles, and then after that presses the takeoff on the thrust rating panel, like so. And we can verify takeoff on the flight mode annunciator. I'm going to do the gear unsafe flight test, and yeah, that's pretty much it for the time being. And we've already done the overhead. And yeah, now in preparation for engine start, I'm going to turn our after boost pumps on in a just turn one after boost pump on for each engine. Let's turn the DC start pump off. Don't need that anymore. And yeah, so I'm ready to start my engines, and it's hardly been, what, 15 minutes or so of me talking. So let's get started. So let's get the beacon light on. And yeah, so let's do a before start checks. Right, so before start checks, flight control, hydraulic flight control lights, these ones over here, they're off. Flap limit selector set to auto, ADG switch set to hydraulic, yaw dampers are on, anti-skids are armed, lights off. Ignition switch off, instrument cooling normal, emergency power switch off, no smoking on, windshield anti-ice set, pitot heat should be set to TAT, like so. Annunciator panel checked, flight guidance panel has been checked, landing gear lights, flaps and slats all checked. Oh yeah, the takeoff warning, let's do that now. So let's go to the pedestal. There we go. Verify the takeoff config warning. That's been checked. And aileron rudder trim. Yep, let's set to 0. And yeah, electrical panel is checked. The gear pins are removed. Departure briefing. We're going to do the Canarsie climb from JFK, runway 31 left. Nav systems are checked. And yeah, so we're ready to start. So just prior to start, we're going to do hydraulics, switch aux pump number 2 on, and windows are locked, seatbelts are on, navigation beacon lights are on, and yeah, pneumatic, let's get our packs off, verify appropriate pressure of about 30 psi is satisfactory, and yeah, engine start time. So let's go to ignition start A, and let's start engine number 3. Yeah, I think that'd be a really good idea, Super 6. We could do like a formation flight or something. Okay, so 15% N2. Let's get the fuel on. yeah, like a formation flight. One, I'll be in the DC-10, you'll be in the DC-6, or maybe I'll be in the DC-8 or something. It'd be real nice, you know. Okay, so engine number 3 is running. We're just gonna wait for starter cutoff before I start number 1. And then I'm going to show you a delayed start, okay? I'm going to shut off the APU. I'm going to show you how to do a cross-bleed start. Okay, so starter cutoff. Starting number 1. Just going to wait for 15% and introduce the fuel. There we go. 15% fuel on. Also, let me get my transponder to TARA, otherwise I'm definitely going to forget. You can enter in, say, 2000 or whatever code they give you and go to TARA. Okay, just waiting for starter cutout. Let's put the landing lights on as well in preparation. Okay, starter cutout. And yeah, let's go to the flight engineers panel very quickly. And we check out Gen 1. Gen 2 is obviously offline, Gen 3. And yeah, I want to start actually shutting down the APU. So let's shut off APU bleed. Let's turn off the APU generators. Shut the APU down. We don't need that anymore. And yeah, let's get our hydraulics online. Let's get the PTUs set to armed. Pressurized system number 2. And yeah, so now let's get the flaps out. We can do that as well. Just switching views very quickly. There we go. Let's go flaps 15. Because the dialer flap system doesn't seem to be working very well on this aircraft. There we go, and we're going to verify the takeoff, set to takeoff. Yep, that's all checks out. And now let's do the cross blade start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open ISOL valve 1 to 2. I'm going to set that to open. And there we go. We've restored our pressure. And now we can spool up a little bit, get some pneumatic pressure. And now we can start engine number 2. Cross bleed style. Okay. So there we go. Spooling up 15%. Fuel is on. And notice it's getting bright. It's daytime. It's coming up. There we go. Engine number 2 is spooling up. Let's get the high intensity lights on as well. There we go. Starter cutout. Yep. So all that remains now really is just cleaning up a little bit. So also notice the high stages are open. That's all good. Let's check Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. All are online. Let's go Gen parallel. There we go. The rest of the ISOL lights are out. Let's get one pack on for takeoff. And yeah, let's close the ISOL valve like so. And yeah, let's get the ADGs, the PTUs off. Sorry, the auxiliary pumps off. Okay, so very quick speed run. APU is all shut down. Like so. Electrics is checked. Hydraulics is checked. Fuel, I'm going to turn on my afterboost pumps in a 1-to-1 configuration. Like so. And coming up over here. Wing anti-ice is on, so I might have by mistake turned something on. Okay, so that all checks out. The flight engineer's station is checked. The overhead panel is checked. Only thing is parking brakes are on. And there we go, released. Flaps and slats are checked. V speeds, okay, I need to set my V speeds. Normally just by clicking over here it should set it, but I think there's a bug or something, so don't know why my V speeds are not showing up. Let's That's actually annoying. Don't know if there's a workaround for that. Anyway, so let's get started then with takeoff. So before takeoff checks is... yeah, also continuous ignition. There we go. Always set continuous ignition on the same system that you started your engines with. Okay. Right. So let me just try something. I'm not able to get the V speeds back, unfortunately. That's a setback. Okay, time for the takeoff now. So what I'm going to do is a couple of comments in the chat. Quite cool, you know. I do like the DC-6. Okay, so let's discuss the takeoff procedure, okay? Also, let me set my trim. I believe it's already set it for us. So the takeoff procedure in the DC-10 is like so. Okay, we've already got takeoff showing over here. So what happens is the engines are spooled up to about 40% N1, after which the captain turns on the auto throttles and then says auto throttles on, set thrust. Okay, so, and that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to spool up 40% N1, auto throttles on, set thrust. There we go. Takeoff thrust is now set. $80 knots. Okay, let's rotate now. There we go, nice smooth rotation, positive rate, gear up. And now we're just going to follow the flight directors. And about 2.5 nautical miles outwards from Kennedy VOR, I'm going to start turning left. There we go. Okay, 1500 feet, climb thrust, N1, bug me up and vert me up. I'm going to dial down vertical speed. Okay, let's start the turn. Otherwise, we're going to go past it. Let's go VOR lock as well. And now we can do our flap retraction. And we're coming up on 250 knots, so as I reach there, I'm going to select IAS hold. Also, let's track the 176 outbound radial. Okay, 250 knots, IAS hold. Wow, the Canarsie climb is kind of difficult. You know, trying to make those steep turns, isn't it? Okay, let's get the autopilot on. And let's do an after takeoff checklist. So after takeoff, landing gear up, lights off, and climb thrust. Let's go ignition as required, which is off. And pitot heats are checked. Let's set it to the captain side. And pneumatics, yeah, I need to get our packs back on, like so. Pressurization, we're climbing and we're checked. And yeah, I think we're doing all good. let's actually fly direct now to the first VOR which I have, which is 115.4. There we go. Gonna select the course. Let's go VOR lock. So you got a couple of questions in the chat. Why is the fuel flow so high for engine number 1 and not for number 2 and number 3? That is a good question, actually. I don't know, to be honest. It could just be an add-on limitation or something. Okay, so let's get the landing lights off. And yeah, let's get the fasten seatbelt signs off as well. Oh yeah, we're above 10,000 feet. We can accelerate now beyond 250 knots. So let's dial ourselves down in terms of vertical speed. And let's accelerate to about as close to the red line as possible, okay? Oh, was the fuel flow at 8,000? Okay, I did not notice that. Yeah, even now it's quite high. I don't know why. It's like 5,100 and the others are low. I mean, that's crazy. Okay, so let's go IS hold again. Also, let's do a bit of fuel management. Okay, so in the real aircraft, what you do is you transfer fuel out of tank number 2 and you fill tanks 1 and 3. So that would be achieved by turning on the transfer pump and opening the fill valves for 1 and 3 and filling them. However, in certain situations, on the DC-10, the fill tanks actually become spring-loaded switches, so you have to actually hold them in position, which is obviously something that I cannot do in FS9. So there is another way to transfer fuel, which is the crossfeed. So that is achieved by turning on the transfer pump and opening the crossfeeds to the engines you want to feed. So now fuel is only going to decrease from tank number 2. And you might ask, do I need to turn off the main wing boost pumps in order for this to work? And the answer is no, because according to the manual, when you turn on the crossfeeds and you're boosting out of tank number 2, you don't have to turn off the booster pump, sorry, for tanks 1 and 3. It overrides them. Also, another interesting thing is whenever you flip a fill tank, it generally triggers off the master caution warning, which is kind of cool. And the little queue over here for fuel as well. It's kind of interesting stuff. Let's see if I can go to the next VOR, which is 113.80. Let's see. Yep, it picks it up, so let's try that. There we go. Adjust the course. Let's go VOR lock. copy that. So now we're flying to the second viewer. Let's add in another view. So let's go new view, outside spot plane. There we go. We can now add 2 views of the DC-10. And this is actually a really exciting time to be around in the aviation world, because just last week, in fact, the DC-10 was grounded and now it's back in service. With FedEx has brought back the MD-11, and now the DC-10 fire tanker is back, as well as the Orbis Flying Hospital, which is actually an MD-10. So then I basically have to monitor the fuel. Once we come down to equal amounts, and we're going to go back to tank to engine. Another question you might have is, how do I balance fuel? Okay, what if there's a fuel imbalance? Well, fuel imbalance is kind of simple to rectify. The way you do so is basically by turning on the transfer pump for the tank you want to boost fuel out of, and opening the fill tank for the tank you want to boost fuel into. Okay, so let me demonstrate that for you. Don't know what's going on here with the viewer. So let me demonstrate that. So suppose we have a fuel imbalance and we kind of have a bit more fuel in tank 1. So let's open the transfer pump and open the fill tank for tank number 3. There we go. And now we've balanced it. Well, actually, let me take on a bit more over here. Let's create a little bit of an imbalance and let's figure it out. So suppose you're the flight engineer of the DC-10 and you're monitoring fuel, and suddenly you're like, whoa, what's going on? There's way more fuel in tank number 3. There's not much fuel in tank 1. And in tank 2, there's not. I mean, it's not equal, okay? So what you're going to do now is you're going to turn on the transfer pump for tank number 3, which is the tank which has the most fuel in. And now open the fill tank for tank number 1. And there we go. We're equalizing. There we go. Perfectly equal. And there we go. Fuel balancing has been resolved. Okay, we're approaching our cruising altitude of 30,000 feet. So as we level off, I'm going to pull the speed gauge out to go into speed mode, okay? There we go, we're going into altitude hold. Let's pull it out. There we go, in speed mode now. Notice the FMA is changed from N1 to SPD, which stands for speed. So we got a question in the chat from Victor. Is the DC-10 better than the L10-11? Wow, you're putting me on the spot there. Well, better is kind of subjective in a way because it depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? So as per, don't quote me here, but I've been reading books, for years and that kind of stuff. So in my experience, I think the DC-10 is technically better in terms of range, okay, and performance. That's the kind of idea I got from books. And in terms of fuel efficiency, I think that's where the L10-11 was technically better in a way because it had the TriStar 500 variant, which was the long range one, which had active drag control systems and quite improved range. But the DC-10 also had quite a lot of improved variants as well. There was the DC-10 extended range variant, the ER, which was actually really good. It had another fuel tank other than the auxiliary. It had another one, and it could actually have aft CG control, which is kind of better for fuel efficiency. So, but the L10-11 was definitely better in terms of technical advancement, in terms of fly-by-wire systems, that kind of stuff. It was better systems-wise. It had the DLC, which is something that no one has seen ever since. And yeah, so the DC-10 was more popular, but the L10-11 is also very good. It's better systems-wise, I think, anyway. Of course, there'll probably be a lot of DC-10 fans who'll probably say no. Maybe. Okay, so fuel tank number 2 is it's kind of gone down a bit too much, and yeah. So what I can do is I can fill tank number 2 back, so it's kind of gone below tanks 1 and 3. Actually, before I do that, let's trying to find out where I'm going. That's the problem, because this doesn't have little nav map like the others. So I made a set of VORs I was going to follow, provided I don't get lost. Let's try another one. There we go. Okay, so let's go back to fuel management. So we got more fuel in tanks 1 and 3, a bit less in tank 2. So let's turn on the transfer pump for tanks 1 and 3 and open the fill valve for tank number 2. And there we go, we're perfectly balanced in terms of fuel. Alright, so I'm going to start descending in preparation. It's always best, in my opinion, to descend a little bit early rather than having to descend quite late. So let's dial ourselves down a little bit. Okay, so I've finally been able to find my way. I think I know where I'm going now. And that's kind of thing, flying VORs to VORs, you can get a little bit lost anyway. So I've got my landing performance over here. Speeds have been bugged. And landing ILS runway 19 right. So that's 111.30. And the course is 191. So let's add that in. So how's everyone doing? Does anyone have any questions regards to anything other than the fuel flow gauge, which is acting strange? But does anyone have any questions about the aircraft, its systems, maybe fuel management or hydraulics or anything? Also, let's start slowing down as well. So there's a speed mode, so you just pull it out and that's how you get speed. It's saying alpha speed, obviously, because you need to start getting some flaps out and then it'll allow us to get there. And let's set that frequency on both sides, 111.30, and the course 191. Oh, that's a nice, you got maths and physics homework, is it? Pretty cool. If you don't mind me asking, what grade are you in? Are you coming up to your GCSEs or anything like that? Or is it still just unit tests and that kind of stuff? Okay, so we're coming quite close now. I'm gonna go gear down. Last time the sim crashed when I did this, so I just hope it works. And start, there we go. Okay, I didn't know that. So you're in the 9th standard. So is it the 11th? Then when you go to year 11, is that when it'll be like the finals? Or still don't know that. Because I had my GCSEs when I was in year 11. and this was in 2019. Skill viewer lock. Okay, so let's take manual command, and kind of a bit high actually. Let's get the continuous ignition on as well. Let's get the landing lights on. Just hope again I'm not gone too high. Let's see how we go. Actually, let's try go around, okay? Not done that before. I want to just try out everything this time. And we'll abort the approach and we'll circle around and come back. Okay, so some bad news, and same like last time, the sim has crashed. I mean, I'm not crashed, but the sim has shut down. And yeah, that's kind of disappointing. Don't know what to do now. It's happened same time twice. Let me just put the intermission on and we'll work something out. Okay, so I'm back in the sim. I've reloaded it, and I think what I'll do is, obviously I can't go all the way there. So I think I might just take off and do a circuit and come back. So let's do that actually. Yeah, that could actually be the case with when you're switching windows or something. That could happen. So let me just really fast start the aircraft up. I think you're gonna see the ultimate speed run of this aircraft. So let's get the APU going. We're not going to do all the checks and everything. We just did all that. Let's get the landing lights on. Let's get a beacon on. High intensity on. And yet we're already in nav mode and everything. Overhead is checked. Let's get the flight directors on. Let's see, has the APU spooled up yet? Still getting there. Okay, APU's online. APU bleed is on. Let's get APU gens on as well. There we go, we got APU air. Let's turn the packs off. Let's get the engines started. Ignition on. There we go, number 3. Let's get the hydraulics sorted out as well. There we go, fuel on. Okay, start cutoff. Let's start number 1. Hang on, actually, just waiting for starter cutoff. Okay, engine number 1. Can in theory do a crossbleed start. Start both at the same time. There we go. Electrics are checked. And let's parallel our gens. Let's get the APU bleed off. Let's get the ISOL valves back in place. Let's get the APU off. APU gens also off. And yeah, let's go. We're ready for round 2. But obviously this time it's just gonna take off, do a circuit, and then come back. Alright, let's get thrust rating computer set up. There we go. 40% N1, auto throttles on, set thrust. Okay, airspeed alive. 80 knots now. V1, rotate. Positive rate, gear up. Okay, 1500 feet, climb thrust, N1. And let's go vertical speed. Let's start to make the turn. There we go, flaps up. Okay, coming up on 250 knots, IAS hold. Okay, let's level off over here. Yeah, I did actually fill that. Thank you so much for that. It's, I never really thought that I'd get this far, and now that I am quite happy about it, and looking forward to, you know, getting more and making more tutorials. Okay, so I've just taken off from JFK and I'm just going to do a loop and going to land, okay? So because the sim crashed on the way going there, so obviously I didn't want to again end an incomplete sim session. That would be quite disappointing, not only to myself but my viewers, so I thought let's just have another go. And the interesting thing was I was able to demonstrate real fast startup of the aircraft. If anyone sees the second startup, it'll be like, it was hardly like, what, 5 minutes or something I did it. So plenty of DC-10 practice. Yeah, that is strange how even now the fuel flow is so high. I'm pretty sure it must be an add-on thing. Doesn't make any sense otherwise. Okay, so just capturing the localizer. And who would have thought that Flight Simulator 2004 actually looks so nice? I mean, surely not as good as 2024, but still, it's not like Flight Simulator 1980 or something like that. Indeed. And the amazing thing about this sim is that it could even be played on laptops and very like low-end devices. Yeah, the colors are definitely the plus point. Just hope it's not another off-center landing. Okay, reverse thrust. Okay, reverse lights out. And let's change view actually. Okay, so you landed, and I'm going to call that the end of the flight sim session today. I hope you had fun. So we went to kind of speedy the whole DC-10 process of getting it started and flying VOR to VOR. I did a missed approach, and shortly after my sim crashed, and then I did a really fast cold and dark to start up, another takeoff, and then finally a quick circuit and landed back. Okay, so I hope you found this really interesting, and stick around if you have any more DC-10 questions, or if you're interested in classic airliners, this is the right place for you. And I hope that you will join me for future sessions. And yeah, just stay in touch. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you have any questions, then fire away. Okay, this is Joshua757 signing out for this week, and see you next week with another interesting video on another classic aircraft. Okay, then see you then, and have a great weekend.